Section 1. Introduction. President Biden has implemented new tariff policies targeting Chinese imports. These tariffs aim to protect American jobs and industries from what the administration perceives as unfair competition. The tariffs affect a range of goods, from electronics to manufactured products. This move signifies a continuation of trade tensions between the U.S. and China, impacting global markets. The tariffs are designed to make Chinese goods more expensive for American consumers, thereby encouraging them to purchase American-made products. This strategy seeks to boost domestic manufacturing and create jobs. However, the tariffs also carry potential downsides, such as increased prices for consumers and potential retaliatory measures from China. The Biden administration argues that these tariffs are necessary to protect American interests and level the playing field in international trade. They believe that China has engaged in practices that harm American businesses and workers, such as intellectual property theft and currency manipulation. By imposing tariffs, the administration seeks to pressure China to change its behavior. These new tariffs represent a significant development in U.S.-China relations. They are likely to have far-reaching consequences for both economies and the global trading system. The impact of these tariffs will depend on how China responds and the ability of American businesses and consumers to adapt to the changing economic landscape. Section 2. Impact on American businesses. American businesses face a mixed bag of potential outcomes. Industries competing directly with Chinese imports stand to benefit from reduced competition. Domestic manufacturers may see increased demand for their products as Chinese imports become pricier. However, businesses reliant on Chinese imports for components or finished goods will experience cost increases. Companies heavily integrated into global supply chains could face disruptions and rising input costs. This could necessitate finding alternative suppliers, potentially leading to higher operational expenses. These cost increases might be passed on to consumers, making American products less competitive compared to goods from other countries. The tariffs could also impact investment decisions. Businesses might hesitate to invest in new projects given the uncertainty surrounding trade relations with China. This uncertainty could stifle economic growth and innovation. The long-term impact on American businesses will depend on the duration and scope of the tariffs, as well as the ability of companies to adjust their strategies. Section 3. Impact on American workers. The impact on American workers is multifaceted. Jobs and industries sheltered by the tariffs are likely to see increased demand. Manufacturing, particularly in sectors directly competing with China, might experience job growth. However, jobs dependent on Chinese imports are vulnerable. Workers in sectors reliant on Chinese components or finished goods could face layoffs if their companies struggle to cope with increased costs. The tariffs might accelerate automation as companies seek ways to reduce labor costs in response to rising input prices. This could lead to job displacement in certain sectors. The net effect on American jobs is difficult to predict. While some sectors might experience job growth, others could face job losses. The government might need to implement worker retraining programs to help those displaced by automation or shifts in demand caused by the tariffs. Section 4. Impact on American consumers. American consumers are likely to feel the pinch of higher prices. Tariffs on Chinese imports translate to increased costs for a range of consumer goods, from electronics to clothing. This could lead to a decrease in purchasing power for American households, potentially slowing down economic growth. The tariffs could also limit consumer choices. As Chinese imports become more expensive, certain products might become scarce or unavailable in the U.S. market. Consumers might have to settle for more expensive alternatives or forego certain products altogether. This could disproportionately affect lower-income households who are more sensitive to price increases. The Biden administration argues that the long-term benefits of protecting American jobs outweigh the short-term costs to consumers. However, the success of this strategy will depend on the ability of American companies to provide affordable and competitive alternatives to Chinese imports. Section 5. Global Trade Dynamics. The tariffs are expected to reshape global trade dynamics. The U.S.-China trade relationship is central to the global economy. Disruptions in this relationship can have ripple effects across international markets. Other countries might see opportunities to fill the gaps created by the tariffs. Countries like Vietnam, Bangladesh, and Mexico could see increased demand for their products as American businesses seek alternative suppliers to China. This could lead to shifts in global manufacturing hubs and reshape supply chains. However, these countries might also face pressure from the US to adopt similar trade practices, adding complexity to international trade relations. The tariffs could also fuel trade tensions between the US and its allies. If other countries perceive the tariffs as protectionist, they might retaliate with their own tariffs, potentially leading to a trade war. Such a scenario would disrupt global trade and harm economic growth worldwide. Section 6. Shifts in economic power. The tariffs represent a play by the US to reassert its economic dominance. The rapid economic rise of China has challenged American hegemony in global markets. The tariffs are seen as a way to counter China's growing influence and protect American economic interests. By making Chinese goods more expensive, the US aims to make American products more competitive and encourage companies to shift production back to the US. However, this strategy could accelerate the decoupling of the US and Chinese economies, leading to a more fragmented global economy. The tariffs could also push China to strengthen its economic ties with other countries, potentially diminishing American leverage in international trade. China might seek to forge stronger trade alliances with countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America as a way to counter US pressure. The tariffs might accelerate the adoption of automation in American industries. As companies face rising labor costs due to the tariffs, they might turn to automation to reduce their reliance on human labor. This could lead to job displacement in certain sectors, particularly in manufacturing. The potential for job losses due to automation raises questions about the need for social safety nets, such as Universal Basic Income or UBI. UBI is a concept where every citizen receives a regular payment from the government regardless of their employment status. Proponents argue that UBI could provide economic security in an era of increasing automation. The impact of the tariffs on automation and the potential need for UBI will depend on the scale of job displacement and the government's response to the changing labor market. If automation leads to widespread job losses, the pressure to implement social safety nets like UBI is likely to increase. The long-term outlook for the US-China trade relationship remains uncertain. The tariffs are just one chapter in a long saga of economic competition between the two superpowers. The outcome of this competition will have profound implications for the global economy. If the tariffs succeed in pressuring China to change its trade practices, it could lead to a more balanced trading relationship between the two countries. However, if the tariffs escalate into a full-blown trade war, it could damage both economies and disrupt global trade. The long-term outlook will depend on the willingness of both countries to negotiate and find common ground. It will also depend on the ability of American businesses and workers to adapt to the changing economic landscape and the government's willingness to implement policies that support those affected by the tariffs. Stakeholders across the board need to adapt strategically to the new economic reality shaped by the tariffs. American businesses need to reassess their supply chains, explore alternative sourcing options, and invest in innovation to remain competitive. Workers need to upskill and acquire new skills to thrive in a changing job market. The government needs to implement policies that support businesses and workers in transitioning to a new economic environment. This could include worker retraining programs, investments in infrastructure, and support for research and development. The government also needs to engage in constructive dialogue with China to find ways to address trade imbalances and foster a more stable economic relationship. The success of these adaptations will determine the long-term impact of the tariffs on the US economy. By embracing strategic adaptation, stakeholders can mitigate the negative effects of the tariffs and position themselves to thrive in a changing global landscape. Biden's new tariff policies mark a pivotal moment in US-China relations. While aiming to protect American jobs and counter what the administration perceives as unfair trade practices, these tariffs carry significant economic and social implications. The tariffs' impact on American businesses, workers, and consumers is complex and multifaceted. The tariffs could reshape global trade dynamics, accelerate automation, and necessitate considerations for social safety nets like UBI. The long-term outlook hinges on strategic adaptation by all stakeholders, including businesses, workers, and the government. This situation underscores the interconnectedness of the global economy and the need for strategic navigation in an era of shifting economic power.